Hello and welcome back to Survey of Biology. Today we're going to start Unit 11 looking at genetic variation and diversity. So as you can see from the diagram up here, DNA, the molecule of life, we just finished talking a little bit about genetics. So we're talking about the gene and how they're passed on. We talked about how the genes together make up the DNA, that make up the chromosomes that are divided during mitosis and meiosis, that put together the cell that make the individual. And so we're really kind of looking at how the genes increase the diversity of the individuals in a population. So when we look at this, one of the main things, probably the main thing that will increase diversity in a population are mutations. So a mutation or a gene mutation is a permanent change in the DNA sequence that makes up a gene. So when we talk about the sequence of A's and T's and C's and G's, as little as one base pair change is a mutation. So mutations are random events. Okay? They're not in response to anything that occur by chance. So an organism can't say, hey, I want a third leg to make me faster, or I want more fur to be warmer. Mutations are random. Okay? And mutations can be beneficial, detrimental, or neutral. They can be good, bad, or indifferent. So when we look at variation, as we can see from the picture here of all these different people, that's what makes the human species diverse. We all have very different genes and different alleles of those genes. So variation ensures the health of a population by making sure that we have a variety of genes that keep us adapted to changing conditions. So random mutations not only change appearances, as we can see from this picture, they bestow disease resistance and other adaptations that we can't see by looking at a person. Here's an example of different species of carrots, or different varieties of carrots. And we can see, we usually think of carrots as being orange, but here we can see red, white, yellow, and everything in between. And all these different alleles, the shapes, the sizes, all the genes that code for that are what we call the gene pool. So the gene pool are all the genes present in a population. So we can think of it as like a stockpile of genes for adaptation to environmental changes or environmental conditions. Think of it as a toolbox. If all of a sudden the conditions get colder, there might be a species of carrot that's better adapted to that. Or if it gets wetter, there might be a different species that has genes that are better adapted to that. So the stockpile of genes, this gene pool, allows a population to remain healthy during changing conditions. Okay, so the gene pool, so a genetically healthy population is defined as having a large amount of genetic variability, a big gene pool. The information for each of an organism's characteristics is carried on a gene, but a gene can have different forms. These are known as alleles, and a large range of alleles leads to a wide variety of genetic options or genetic possibilities. So this is that toolbox that I talked about. So here's a population of frogs when we talk about the gene pool. So you can see there's green, purple, and red frogs, and there's a lot more green frogs right now. So in the gene pool, the green allele would be represented at a higher rate. We can see down in the lower left that that's true of the gene pool. So there are fewer purple and even fewer red genes, but they are still present and can increase in frequency if the conditions change. So right now, let's say that these are tree frogs, and the trees that they are living in are predominantly green leaves, like most of them are. So the green frogs would have an advantage because they would be camouflaged. But if something were to happen and all of a sudden the leaves started changing, maybe during the fall, or they had a mutation and all of a sudden the leaves turned red, which frog would have an advantage in that one? Well, the red frog would, and in the succeeding generations, the frequency of the red allele would increase and take over the green one. So here's an example with bacteria. So if we look at the very top row, here's our initial population of bacteria. And if a mutation creates variation, so we can see after one generation, we have two kind of mutant forms, the red and the green here. Now, some mutations we said were detrimental, in this case fatal. So the red one is out, the orange one continues on its line, and the green one is maybe neutral, maybe beneficial, but it is allowed to survive and reproduce, and we can get more green bacteria. But now if another mutation, more mutations occur, we can lead to this blue bacteria that we see, which is resistant to an antibiotic, say penicillin or amoxicillin. And now, when we get down to this last generation, the blue ones are the only ones that can survive because they're resistant to this antibiotic. So this is what we call natural selection. So those bacteria are being selected for based on the different genes, the different mutations that they've accumulated. And in this case, resistance to antibiotics is the major one here. And as we go ahead, we're going to be looking at evolution. And this is the cornerstone of the idea of evolution and natural selection. And it all has to do with the fact that there is a large variation in population. There's lots of genes to choose from under different conditions. So why is genetic variability so important? Well, here's the advantages. One, a population will have the ability to adapt to changing environments. Okay. Number two, they can also give resistance to diseases. So mutations may arise that will make the population less prone to certain diseases. It allows the population to prepare for the unexpected. They now have this toolbox of genes, the gene pool available to them. And individuals with the beneficial mutation will survive, they'll reproduce, and the frequency of that allele or that gene in the population will change over time. So as we'll see in the next unit, it's going to lead right on into evolution. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon.